Welcome back. Earlier this month, my guest tonight made headlines for winning the American Samoa Democratic caucus over President Biden. But while the White House may not be in the cards for 2024, he's turning his focus on a bigger effort, trying to mobilize younger voters with one goal in mind. Welcome back to the Final Five. Jason Palmer up late with me. He's now the founder of the organization Together! Exclamation point. He's up late with me tonight here on the Final Five. I would imagine that the exclamation point would be silent, but just for the purposes of people seeing it at home. Jason, good to see you again.
I always say exclamation point too. I think it stands out.
You kind of alluded to this when we had you on, because you said you were really interested in trying to get younger people excited about the process, because there are many of them who do feel disaffected right now. So talk about Together and what this is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's multiple months of thinking and work that have gone into this. We have too many young people who've tuned out of the democratic process. We need to get them engaged. I'll be going to college campuses all over the country, starting with the University of Virginia, my alma mater, very shortly. And, we also have to deploy technology tools to make it easier and fun for them to vote. Those of you that are old enough to remember Rock the Vote, we're going to do something like Rock the Vote, but updated for 2024. Try to get as many young people engaged as possible, try to engage both athletes and celebrities. I will be announcing that I'm also endorsing a number of candidates for office who are young people themselves, who've been involved in entrepreneurship, cause change activities, and people on both sides of the aisle. I want to bring the whole country together as much as I'm able. And there's a large group of people who are also entrepreneurs that are lining up to be part of the movement.
Is there an ideology attached to it? Or are you looking for certain issues to be advanced? Or is this more about the idea of getting people excited about public service?
That's a great question. We are still figuring out the final details on exactly what pledge people will sign in order to be members of the movement. But we don't want to have any litmus tests on particular ideological or policy issues. We do want to have value-based tests. So we're going to ask everyone to sign up to be part of the Problem Solvers Caucus. If they're elected, that's a group of Democrats and Republicans that work together in Congress to actually pass legislation. We're going to ask that people be very clear about their own positions on issues that voters care about, but we're not going to necessarily say what your position should be, just that this should be about ideas and letting the voters know what your positions are.
When we had you on and we were talking about the American Samoa caucus and those results there, this, as we talked about the presidential run, this is sort of the evolution of what the campaign was into Together.
That's absolutely correct. We've always been throughout this campaign trying to represent the voice of young people, especially entrepreneurs, especially people that believe that capitalism can and is a force for good. And I don't think there are enough Democrats that stand up for the fact that small businesses account for 2/3 to 3/4 of all job creation in this country. And as somebody who's been a technology entrepreneur and investing in entrepreneurs my whole life, I know many of them have thought about getting involved with public service, but they always think they can do more on the outside by starting a business or being a cause champion. And I want to encourage more of them to get into politics and to go into Congress and show that there is a collaborative, better way to take our government back.
I know this is not necessarily what he hangs his hat on, but this is how I know Kwame Jackson. He was a contestant on the early years of The Apprentice. I believe the first season, if I'm not mistaken. He was the last person fired by Donald Trump. He certainly has moved on to he is his own man at this point. He's engaged in the process too.
That's right. I have two co-founders in this, Kwame Jackson, who I've known for about 25 years, and Deborah Perry-Piccione, who is actually a best-selling author on the future of work. And Kwame and I have known each other since a company that we worked on together back 1999 to 2001. I think he might be the only person in America who's both worked for Donald Trump and work for Jason Palmer. And, I'll let him explain how the differences are, but he clearly prefers to work with me.
I think one thing we're looking at here, and again, I'm looking at some of these primary races battling out, and there are issues in this country that really have shifted people one way or another. So as you look, what do you think the biggest challenge is, though, engaging these younger voters? Maybe they may not be the entrepreneurs you're talking about, but if they are engaged in the process, how do you make them realize that vote does count, that not everything has been predetermined? Because that's how a lot of young voters and maybe we're in order to feel about the process.
Yeah, no, you're right. This is going to be a difficult challenge to get 1 million young people registered to vote who wouldn't otherwise vote. And traditionally, young people have not voted in elections to nearly the same degree as people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, et cetera. The older you get, the more likely you are to vote. However, we can make voting fun and interesting and kind of gamify it in a way. And we're going to do some of that in terms of which candidates we select, who gets to actually meet some of the celebrities and the athletes that we're going to be bringing together. We're going to make voting fun.
And you're also going to engage with the metaverse, which I'm looking forward to seeing how you plan to do that. We'll talk about that another time. Jason, I got to leave it at that, but great to see you again. By the way, how can people get more information about Together?
They need to go to togetherpurple.org. We actually already have a large number of donors, but we're looking for more people to donate and much more people to sign up and be volunteers to help build the movement.
Great to see you again, Jason.
Thanks, Jim.
Final Five is back after this.